Hello friends, welcome back. I am CA Sharad Goyal. Almost after 25 years, India hosted the International Cricket World Cup in 1996. Controversy whether tax at source should have been deducted on payment to ICC and other cricketing associations or not got settled by the Supreme Court of India recently. This matter got settled, but it gave birth to a large question. Are the rules of game for deduction of tax on non-resident payments changed? Let me first set the background, which will be useful for this discussion. PILCOM stands for Pak Indo-Lanka Joint Management Committee, which was formed to jointly conduct Cricket World Cup tournament in India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. PILCOM made payments from its London bank account without any deduction of tax to cricket control boards and associations of different member countries who took part in this tournament. Tax authorities claim that PILCOM failed to deduct tax on these payments, which PILCOM denied, citing various reasons like tax treaty, etc. Supreme Court finally held that PILCOM should have withheld tax on payments made by it with respect to matches played in India under the provisions of Section 194E of the Income Tax Act. Sir, welcome to this discussion. My first question to you is, this PILCOM case relates to TDS under Section 194E. Sir, how is this section different from Section 195? After all, both these sections relates to payments to non-residents.
Yes, Sharad. Provisions of Section 194E mandate deduction of tax at source at a given rate on all sums paid or payable to non-resident sports persons or sports associations. Now, coming to your later part of the question as to the difference between this provision and Section 195, you will have to look to the scheme of the deduction of tax at source in Chapter 17. There are certain special provisions dealing with certain specific kinds of income, like interest, salary, or payment to sports person, etc. After providing for these specifics, the chapter lays down Section 195, which begins with the title Other Sums. So there is no basic difference between the two provisions, except that these operate in their own fields. Former in relation to the payment to sports persons, and the latter, that is Section 195, with residual in kinds of payments for which no special provision exists.
So the Calcutta High Court in this ruling said that for Section 194E, it is not required to examine chargeability of the payment. Once conditions of Section 115 BBA are fulfilled, then TDS under Section 194E comes into play. So why the court said that chargeability is not relevant while applying Section 194E? Also, please explain, had this been a case of Section 195, would the court ruling be different?
Sharad, I think it is necessary to understand this observation of the High Court. Let us go to some basics. Taxes are deducted at source only in respect of those payments which are chargeable to tax. There will not be any deduction of tax at source if the income is not at all chargeable to tax under the provisions of the domestic law. In fact, the mandate for TDS or the payment of advance tax flows primarily from subsection 2 of section 4 and is limited in its scope to the income which is chargeable by virtue of the provisions contained in 4.1. So it may not be appropriate to say that section 194E provides for tax deduction in respect of sports persons or sport associations, whether income is chargeable to tax or not. That is not the case. Section 194E begins with reference to what income? The income which is referred to in section 115 BBA. And what does 115 BBA say? It is not a charging section. It only provides a special rate of tax. Rather, this section begins with the condition that where the total income includes any income received or receivable. Now, it is important to note the expression total income includes. We all know that income would get included in total income only if it is chargeable to tax by virtue of section 4 and section 5. So it is in this background that the observation of the High Court has to be seen. I believe this kind of confusion arises from the fact that section 195 uses the expression sum chargeable to tax, whereas 194E or some other sections do not use that kind of expression. Now, please appreciate that section 195 uses the expression chargeable to tax because this expression qualifies the word sum. And any sum, it may have the income character or it may not have the income character. It may be taxable, liable to tax, it may not be liable to tax. So therefore, what the Parliament considered that the expression chargeable to tax to qualify the sum was necessary in that background. But where the provision provides for a kind of income which is already included in the total income, then I don't think this expression is needed. So it serves the same purpose which the expression chargeable to tax does in section 195. So in my opinion, the use of these words in section 195 makes no difference to the issue at hand. Even if it were a case under 195, the chargeability would have been examined, but the chargeability under the provisions of this act.
So, sir, what is the core issue then which is bothering professionals post this PILCOM ruling?
Yeah, the core issue is that is bothering all of us is that the Honorable Supreme Court upheld the decision of the High Court that the DTA has to be pleaded by the assessee from whose account the deduction has been made at the time of the filing of the return and not by the payer at the time of TDS. This principle emerging from PILCOM ruling has a far-reaching consequence. But we cannot ignore the fact that these are the principles emerging from the decision of the Apex Court. In my humble view, the principles set out by the Honorable Supreme Court, they are broad principles, and these would apply with equal force to the payments falling under 195 of the Act as well.
Sir, are you saying that though section 194E does not specifically uses the terms chargeable under the Act as it does in case of section 195, but these words automatically should be read in section 194E?
I have already explained this, Sharad. I mean, there can be no TDS payment if the income is not chargeable to tax, right? It has to be chargeable under the provisions of this Act. This is the mandate of the law. Taxes are not collected for being refunded at a later stage. Here also the payment made by PILCOM was chargeable to tax under the domestic law, as it was forming part of total income. Both the High Court and the Honorable Supreme Court rejected the argument of the SSE raised against its chargeability under the IT Act. Hence, let us be very clear that the chargeability of the amount under the domestic law was not in doubt. The limited question is whether its chargeability under the DTA needs to be established at the time of tax deduction at source. That is the critical issue.
Sir, High Court in this case said that, and this was supported by the Supreme Court as well, What's the problem? Non-resident assessee can file tax return and claim refund of TDS with interest if found non-taxable. What do you think about this, sir?
Yes, sir, you are right. You have rightly pointed out this part. This is the core issue emerging from the decision. Now, on the question of the applicability of the DTA at the stage of deduction of tax at source, the Calcutta High Court in this case did examine the issue, even though it was not very specifically argued by the parties. The High Court held that once the income is chargeable and liable to tax deduction at source by virtue of the provisions of Income Tax Act, the tax has to be deducted. The High Court rested its conclusion on the reasoning that this is not the final tax, and if it is found at a later stage that the income was not excisable to tax, the assessee can always get the money refunded together with interest. The court went on to make a very categorical finding that the advantage of the DTA has to be pleaded, and mark these words, advantage of the DTA has to be pleaded by the real assessee from whose income tax is deducted and not by the payer. The Honorable Supreme Court upheld this in unequivocal terms, that the reasoning that weighed with the High Court for the applicability of DTAA is quite correct. This is the categorical statement of the Honorable Supreme Court. It further laid down the broad principle that the obligation to deduct tax under Section 194E is not affected by DTA. And in case the liability to tax is disputed by the assessee on whose account tax is deducted, same as the real assessee, the benefit of DTA can be pleaded, and this word is being repeated by the Honorable Supreme Court. And if the case is made out, the amount in question can always be refunded with interest. But that by itself cannot absolve the liability under Section 194E. So what is true of Section 194 is equally true of Section 195 as well. The Supreme Court not only upheld the principle set out by the High Court, but it also reiterated that principle in its own words. I do not think that there is any ambiguity in the ratio or the principles laid down by the Supreme Court in PILCOM. And this has been done, mind it, and this is very important. And this principle has been set out after considering the scope and the applicability of earlier decisions in the case of GE Technology and Eli Lilly. The Honorable Court records a finding that these decisions do not apply to the issue at hand.
So, sir, is a distinction made between a situation where taxes are withheld as a tentative measure and that where taxes are withheld as final payment of tax?
No, I mean, that I don't think so. Any such principle is laid down by the Honorable Court. In fact, the provisions contained in subsection 2 of 115 BBA clearly grant the assessee exemption from filing of tax return if taxes have been deducted in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act. This aspect of the matter was neither argued nor considered by the High Court or by the Supreme Court. However, that brings to the fore another dimension of the issue. The Indian tax law recognizes TDS in respect of certain payments as final, like 194E or even 115A, on the condition that the taxes have been deducted at source in accordance with the provisions contained in domestic law. which in other words would mean that if the benefit of DTA is taken, the return of income would need to be filed. This only affirms the principles set out by the Honorable Court.
So, sir, at the end, what do you suggest? What should we do?
Sharad, it's really situation is really unfortunate that we have witnessed a large-scale litigation on the issue of TDS on payments to non-residents. As a consequence of this decision, the tax authorities will insist that the taxes are deducted in accordance with the provisions of this Act, and the benefit of the treaty can be pleaded at a later stage. Now, it would be, but the number of the cases where the income is chargeable under the domestic law and is not chargeable under the DTA is quite large. And it may be very difficult for the revenue to handle the value. This has all the more reason that a detailed guideline for maintenance of some kind of declaration or documentation by the recipient of income with regard to the applicability of DTA is recognized. Currently, you know, the remittances are allowed on certification by a chartered accountant in Form 15CB. Time has come, whether either by virtue of some amendment in the law or issue of suitable guidelines, be it in the form of public ruling or circular, to provide in clear terms that where the DTA provisions would be applicable at the time of tax deduction at source or not. These guidelines would then be adopted by taxpayers and tax authorities alike. I think certainty on these matters is the need of the hour.
Very well. Thank you very much, sir, for your detailed explanation of interplay of chargeability provisions of the Act vis-a-vis tax deduction at source. It's quite interesting and learning experience. Thanks once again, sir. Hope the viewers would have found this discussion interesting. Do let us know by liking or giving comments to this video. Thanks and take care. Thank you, sir.